This is called She's the One. Well, she's the one, probably the only one who don't think I'm just plain crazy. Well, she understands, maybe she's the only one who can make me wanna dance. I know it's hard to love someone who's always on the run. Just know that this winding road leads me home to you. She can make mistakes, I'm pretty sure it don't take much from me to burn away her fuse. She always forgives me, grabs my face, kisses me, and I'm there, right where I belong. I know it's hard to love someone who's always on the run. Just know that this winding road leads me home to you. Can't wait to take a hand, make promises of the man that I know I'm gonna be someday. And here we are, nice house, couple cars and a wooden fence, built just for I know it's hard to love someone who's always on the run. Just know that this winding road leads me home to you. Oh, it's hard to love someone, yeah, who's always on the run. Just know that this winding road leads me home, leads me home, leads me home.
So my name is Rachel Dangermond, and I'm the director of the Men D.B.A Hall. And how I got to the Men D.B.A Hall was a long and windy tale, but I was an investigative reporter for Wall Street for all of my career. Lost my job 2011. Was living in New Orleans, trying to figure out how to make a living in New Orleans as a writer and an investigative reporter. And that was very difficult. So I started doing writers' workshops in my home. And I wanted to buy a double and do writers' workshops in the other side of my home, not in my home. And so I was looking around and had been looking for a double for a while. And a friend who lived in Bay St. Louis sent me a link for a blues hall that was for sale. And when she sent it, I thought, why the hell would I want to live in a blues hall? It made absolutely no sense to me. I had no interest. And then a series of events happened, a series of unfortunate events happened. And I found myself like, I just want to get out of New Orleans. And I can't believe I was saying that because I am a New Orleanian. And I found that I wanted to be in Bay St. Louis. I wanted to raise my young son there. And I just wanted more freedom for him, more freedom for me. And I loved the sort of chill energy that the Bay had. So I went one morning, called the agent, said, can I look at this? And I had no idea what it was. I'd never been, never heard of it, nothing. And the guy, Jesse, who was the previous owner, comes and opens the door. And I walked in, and it was like, I don't know what it was like, but I can tell you this. I've only had that experience one other time, and that's when I adopted my son, met my son who I adopted. He was 9 months old, and I walked in, and I knew with divine clarity that I was supposed to be doing that. And I had the same feeling when I walked in the hall. I walked in, and I was like, something was just, this is what you're doing. And I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I was thinking I wanted a place to have writers' workshops. And this was a big old hall. And it had some history attached to it that I had kind of heard about, but I really didn't know that much about. And so then I bought the hall. We moved ourselves over here. We live in back of the hall because the previous owners had put a home in back of it. And I mean, a 2-bedroom apartment in back of it. So we moved in, and I was in there, and I started just, going to Frugal's, the family grocery store. And there this guy was stocking cans, and he said, you that lady that bought the hall? When I was about this big, I snuck in behind my brother's legs and saw Sam Cooke playing there. And then this other woman said, when I was 13, they wouldn't let me in the hall, but I sat on the front steps and the door was closed. But Etta James was in there singing, and you could hear like she was standing right out here. And I just kept hearing these stories, and they were crazy stories. I mean, stories that were like, they still, like, they give me goosebumps. And the place itself gives me goosebumps. It is alive with an energy that was infused in it by the people who started it. And so I got very curious about what was going on, and and then sort of came to learn the story. And that is in 1894, 12 civic-minded black men in the community formed a DBA, a Death and Burial Association. And they called it the 100 Members Debating Benevolent Association. And that's very kind of highfalutin, but they were educated, and I don't think there was any debating going on, but they did a lot of civic activity together. And they also had a kitty, and they raised money for medical reasons, for burial reasons in the black community. And this was time of Jim Crow, segregation, so it was dark times in America. And but that group of people grew, and there was women who formed groups under that group. And I've heard every tale. Like one guy told me, oh yeah, when I was young, I used to ride my donkey over here to get my 25 cents from my dad, who belonged to the 100 Men. And those stories are just every day. And so one guy who was in the organization worked for the rail yard, which is right across the street from us. And he saw this land for sale, and it's almost an acre, and it was $100. And so he bought it, and he donated it to the organization. And then they would meet and have picnics, and then they built an open-air pavilion, and then they built the hall. I mean, and it is, it's 3,500 square feet. It is a big Juke Joint. But they built this hall, and they built on a big kitchen on the side, which was like a commissary type place. But that's where they would have their meetings. And so they would meet once a month, and everybody pay their dues, and they say, okay, Mandy went to the doctor, and her doctor's bill $3. Can we pay all of it this month, or half of it, or what do we want to do? And so they would organize and pay those bills. And then if Scott, Mandy's husband, dropped dead, they would go over to her house and give her $250 to handle his burial and the funeral arrangements. So it was a benevolent association. But it also became a place where people gathered, and in gathering, they also were entertaining themselves. So one of the biggest things they did there, which was very popular, was the manless wedding. So half the women would dress in drag, and they would put on a wedding as a skit. And so, I have those pictures hanging in the hall today, and women come in or men come in and they go, "That's my auntie, that's my grandma," and they look like men, like you would never know they were women, but they would put on a whole wedding thing with drama and stuff like that. And then there were local acts, and there was a big local act, Bo and Dee, that they played all along the coast, but they played the hall quite often. And we now have an image of Bo on our mural outside. But so that was going on. And then when we got in, so that's 1922 when the hall was built. And so this is 2022. So in June 1922, it was finished being built. And June this year, 2022, 100 years later, we're going to start celebrating the centennial. But also, as you were kind of going into the 30s and 40s, you have a lot of black musicians who are traveling the South, trying to find a place to play a gig. They can't play white establishments. They can't stay at white establishments. They can't eat in white establishments. So juke joints like this kind of dotted the area. And this is where they would feed their bellies. They'd feed them their souls by playing music. People pay a quarter, 50 cents, up to, as it was going, $1.50 for a dance. And then we were on a circuit that was very tight-knit with New Orleans, more so than Hill Country Blues or Delta Blues. We were jump blues. And it was a sound that married with New Orleans sound, much more so. The guy would come out of the Dewdrop Inn and say, "I need a bass player, a singer, and a drummer. Head out to Men Hall for a 10 o'clock show." So we were on more of that type of circuit. But on this circuit, we had a young Ray Charles come through, a young James Brown come through, a young Etta James come through. And these musicians, they were working the circuit, and it was not an easy place. It was not, it's romanticized now, the Chitlin circuit and these legendary musicians. But Charmaine Neville was talking about it, and she was a youngster, kind of the last on the Chitlin circuit. But she talks about playing a juke joint, and it was owned by white people. And as soon as they finished their gig, the white people trying to take their instruments and not pay them, and they're having to grab their stuff and run down the street, jump in their car, and head out of there. So it was risky. It was, it was dark times. But the hall became a black energy center, and it was a place where joy was had. And its energy, sorry, its energy is still there. Like the musicians that get up on the stage, they say they can feel that, the sound in the walls and just everything. And I can feel it. You can't, knowing who's been there and knowing what's happened there. It's an amazing place. It really is. And so we're about to start celebrating the 100 years, and we're going to do that very intentionally. So one thing we're doing for kids, because I feel like a lot of kids leave the coast and go elsewhere, and there's a story of Mississippi, of black and white relations and what went on here. And I think the hall tells a more nuanced story than any of those stories that get spread out of the state. And it's a story of self-direction and self-reliance in the black community. It's a story of finding joy amidst sorrow. We have a famous James Booker quote. James Booker was born in New Orleans, but he was raised in the Bay by his aunt. And we honor him every year in our fundraiser, the Booker Fest. But he said, "I'm no stranger to rejoicing in sorrow." So this is what was going on. It was very bad times, but they found a place to have good times. And so the hall remained by the black community until 1982. And then it changed for the first time into white hands. And that was, a lot of things were going on. First of all, segregation was over. Jim Crow laws were over. We'd have the civil rights. But something was changing in music too. At this time, there was the rise of the DJ. So suddenly you have records available and DJs playing house parties, and you don't need a live band. You don't have to pay for a live band. You don't have to have a venue that supports a live band. And so you're seeing more youngsters where they were clamoring to get in the hall. They wanted to be where their parents were because they wanted to have that kind of good time. I mean, there's talk of all these young boys hanging over the window, kids standing on cars, trying to get into the halls, and actually some sneaking in through the men's bathroom window. Now you have a group of young people who want to be anywhere but where their parents are. They don't want to be at the hall. They want to be in Gulfport or Slidell where they can mingle in integrated places, and they can listen to music from all over. So that change in music also changed the importance of the hall. Where it was a sanctuary in a much needed time, it didn't have that need anymore. The music had changed. So the 100 members debating Benevolent Association disbanded in 1982, and it was bought by the Disabled Veterans of America. And then they sold it to a couple in Georgia who were going to turn it into an art gallery. And then that couple owned it when Katrina hit. And Katrina hit, and the couple did not come back. They didn't care about it. And FEMA put a note at the front, that right of entry, that they were going to tear it down. And there were some people who recognized it as something worth saving. And so they clamored to get together. And there just happened to be a couple from California who was living in Bay St. Louis. They just moved there maybe 2 years before. And they ended up finding out that the original organization in 1894 was actually registered as a 501c3 federal nonprofit. So these, educated black men in 1894 knew what they were doing. And so they were able to get the building, and the state of Mississippi gave them $110,000 to fix it. And so luckily, this guy, he is a historic renovator, and he's a musician too. So his love of the hall was what he put that into redoing it with that money, and then added on the 2-bedroom apartment in back for him and his family to live in. So then they had it, and they wanted to run a music venue, but we just don't have that sort of audience that can support it, where you can actually make money on it, pay your bills, and do all that stuff. So it just kind of sat without anything going on for about 5 years, and then that couple sold it to me. And as I said, when I came in, I didn't know, I didn't know what it was. And even today, every time I delve a little deeper, there's more stories, there's more history, there's more significance to this place, what it means to the black community, what it means to the white community. When I bought it, I got a grant to try to tell, my whole thing is to try to tell its story through art. So I got a grant to do it 3 ways. One was to do a mural on the side of the building, which would be public art that would show the hall to people, a visual storyboard of its history. So we have one whole side is Harry Fairconatoo, who's one of the local band leaders. Then you can have Guitar Bo, who's a local act. Then there's Etta James, of course. And then there's 3 girls who are doing a Mardi Gras skit for when their parents were in the hall. And then there's Lucius Spiller, who is a blues player who's played several times, and he's up in Clarksdale, but he's kind of like the future. So, and then the second thing we did was we did this thing called the 100 Men Hall People Project. And we had this guy, Gus Bennett, come over, and he does Essence Fest and Jazz Fest, and he's a photographer. And he came over, and we were taking pictures of people who have a history with the hall. And mind you, by the time I got there, a lot of these people, older people, were dying off. And so I felt this urgency to capture their stories. And we wanted to get, 365 people so that we could publish one a day with their story. But we only got like 80. And so then we asked for more time. And we got, at this point, I said, well, okay, if you're white and you lived here all your life and your parents lived here all their life and they didn't know about the hall, that is part of the story. And so they came in. And so then we expanded until we had 274 people who, either just learned about the hall, lived here all their life, maybe had heard about it but didn't know what was going on. So we did that. And then the third thing was our big project, which was turning this. We had a workshop on the property, and we turned it into what we call the Tin Shed. But it was a place for musicians to come from all over the world and stay and record, perform, rehearse, whatever they wanted to do. And then also artists. And so we do an artist in residency. And what we ask is that the artists leave a mark on the hall. And we hope that that means amplifying our story so that more people know about it. I think the important thing is that I'm one person. I stumbled upon this. It is a real gem, and it needs stronger support than just me. Because, if I drop dead tomorrow, what is it going to do? Turn into, houses or something? I mean, it needs to have some sort of foundational support so that it can continue to be a landmark, because it is one of the rare African-American landmarks in the region, one of the few standing buildings on the Mississippi Blues Trail. It has a significant importance.
Winds are shift. Most times I don't care. Painted in the corner, she was standing there. Mama told me, son, it's rude to stare. The minute she opened up her mouth, started singing that Joplin song, she was running wild in my head. Pardon me while I take a seat, listen to this angel speak to me. She don't know, she just saved my soul. With every word she sang, she was running wild in my head. Well, does she know I'm right here in this room? This tainted life has me facing down the truth. Guess I'll sit right here and drink till they call me up to sing. When I take the stage, what will this weathered voice say? Will my words even mean a thing? Lord, I know I can't save her soul, but with every song I might play, she'll be running wild in my head. I sit right here and drink till they call me up to sing.
My name's Tyler Tisdale. I'm a singer-songwriter from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I started out playing live shows about 10 years ago. I started out in like a cover band, and we were looking for a female singer because we thought for some reason that was the ticket. We need a female singer, and the problem was we couldn't find one. And so one day we were at practice, and I was just messing around singing, and the guys were like, we're just going to put a microphone in front of you. And I guess it was good enough. And, the true friends will tell you how bad it was when I first started. I really feel like I had to learn to be a singer and a performer first. I had to teach myself that kind of that aspect of it. And then once I wrote my first song, it was kind of like the bug bit, and it was just once you get to play your own song in front of people and you get a good response, and it just feels good. And I was kind of like, I'd rather just do that. I want to write songs, but unfortunately, you got to pay the bills too, and covers pay the bills when you're starting out. So, but yeah, I chased it for a long time and got with Midnight Revel for about 5 years, and toured with those guys and wrote a bunch of songs, made a couple albums, and then once COVID hit, the band had broken up, and I had gone into a bit of a hiatus from performing live, and I just went into writing mode. And around that time, I met Steve Azar, who had a consulting company, and I did some writing sessions with him. And then he ended up wanting to manage me and produce my record. And it was 2020 when we met, and then we actually started recording. And later that year, finished it up, I think around the beginning of 2021, and then have spent all of 21 getting it ready to start putting out and building the brand and putting the singles out and all that stuff. And yeah, it's been about a 10-year endeavor, and it's had its ups and downs, but I feel like we're in a good place right now. I do like to get up to Nashville when I can. There's a lot of songwriter events that they put on up there. I just did one this past weekend it's called Backstage at 3rd and Lindsley. And it's like 12:30 in the afternoon. It's like a noon. Like the show starts at noon, and it's a packed house though, and it's a lot of fun. And but yeah, it's a bit of a different vibe. You're usually when you're on the road and you're playing and you're gigging, you've got the rooms. There's a little more lively and a little more. The drinks are going around, and everybody's having a good time, which I love that too. But these shows are a lot more intimate, and it's all about the lyrics, and everybody's there to hear the lyrics and hear the stories behind the songs. There's a lot of telling stories involved with it as well, and I enjoy that aspect. But yeah, I do love Nashville. It's really cool. It's different. It's a lot different than down here. It's I don't like to use the word competition because I feel like we should all support each other. I mean, we're all in music because we love it. So, but there's a lot of competition up there. There's a lot. If you're not willing to pay for said amount, there's 4 people knocking on the door that will. So you definitely you have to plan when you're going through Nashville. You need to have supporting gigs around it to make the trip doable. But man, as much as I can get up there, though, I'm trying to. It's a lot of fun, and it's you meet a lot of cool people up there for sure. And then twice now I've gone out to in the Delta in Mississippi, and Steve Azar has the Mockingbird Songwriter Festival out there, and this year when we did it for my set, it got really cold out there, so they moved it inside of this old cotton gin, and we just set up like shotgun style room, and it was very intimate, and like it was me and Philip Lamons and Win Barble, and those two guys were incredible. So it was more of like a writer's round. So in that scenario, I'm getting to sit with these guys, listen to their stories from their songs. Win Barble is hilarious and is much like I crack up because with Win, it's like his stories are so good. With some of these guys, the stories are so good that you almost like the song is just icing on the cake because the stories are that good, you know? So I very much love that aspect of it. I feel like there's always a story behind a song, you know, and I feel like people really connect with that, and people like to be able to, you know, understand where you're coming from when you're writing a song, and they also love to be able to connect with it in their own way and maybe have a completely different interpretation of the song, you know, than the way you wrote it, which I love that too. I always tell people, you know, when I write a song, they ask me what it's about. I almost a lot of times like to ask them, you know, you tell me what it's about, because it might hit you in a completely different way than what I meant when I wrote it, you know. And I really love that about music. And there's just there's so many, you know, different opinions and vibes, and just like just any song can hit any two people completely different at any given moment, you know. And I really love that. So all social media platforms is Tyler Tisdale Music, and I am on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, any digital platform you should be able to find me. And then you can go to my website, www.tylertisdalemusic.com, and we will have merch store on there where you can buy all the merch that's going to be. We'll be announcing that soon. But we've got a full line of merch on the way, and you'll be able to get on there and order it, and I'll ship it to you. I think I'm a firm believer in defining success for yourself, before you, you know, in any endeavor, whether it's, you know, restaurant, bar business, or anything you want to do with your life. Define success before you go into that, because especially with music, you know, if the goal is you know, to make a bunch of money and you know, be rich and famous and all that, it's probably not going to happen. First of all, I've been in it for 10 years now, and we're just now starting to see some small success. We've got a long way to go, but I think for me, it's really just I want the bills to be paid. I want my family to be happy and everybody taken care of. And as long as I'm getting to do what I love to do, which is write music and make new acquaintances and write with new people and just enjoy making music for the world. I mean, that's all I could ever really ask for, but I would say in the next couple of years, I would just love to be, touring the country and just, checking off bucket list venues. That's kind of my goal. There's a lot of cool venues out there I want to play, and I just would love to start checking them off.
Coming home ain't so easy these days. Just can't find the words to say. Everything's alright. Build your world, but I can't find my tools. Wanna climb in bed right next to you and hold you high up on that pedestal. Never felt I was good enough for you. Was a little bit scared if I was to tell the truth. No, I don't deserve you at all. Yes, I know. Oh, I know where you belong. Oh, where you belong. I just can't find the right from the wrong, but I know you belong. Where you belong. You told me that you love me anyway. I still can't find the words to say. Every man